Girl, was it good? You heard she getting out the car? Yeah. I wonder how she look. Hey, yeah!
My, no, honey. Ain't nothing like coming home to a warm man in the bed.
Who the hell are you?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Woman to Woman. We have our first lady, Kelly from Beverly Hills.
Can you picture being so good that Hollywood actually scraps a role written for RuPaul just to cast you instead? Imagine performing 2-hour comedy shows, totally improvised, every single night for 4 straight years. No script, no safety net, just pure genius on stage. That's the wild story of Corwin Anthony Hawkins. And trust me, by the time you hear what happened right when his big Hollywood break hit, your heart's gonna drop. It'll change the way you watch his movie forever. Corwin Anthony Hawkins was born on March 12, 1965 in Houston, Texas, into a tight-knit Catholic family that had no clue what kind of star they were raising. He went to St. Peter's Catholic School side by side with his siblings, Phoebe, Deidre, and Wilbur Jr., and every Sunday, you'd find the whole family at St. Benedict's Catholic Church. His parents, Wilbur and Joyce Hawkins, were all about faith, structure, and discipline. But hidden inside that quiet, respectful boy was a spark that was about to explode onto the Texas comedy scene. When Corwin graduated in 1982, something clicked. He realized he had this unreal gift. He could become anyone. But his real magic showed when he transformed into the biggest female icons of the time. And this wasn't some simple dress-up act. Oh no. Corwin didn't just mimic, he embodied them, adding his own fire, his own flair, his own unstoppable confidence. He wasn't just performing, he was redefining what performance could even mean. By the late 1980s, Corwin wasn't just another club performer in Houston. He was revolutionizing nightlife. Every Tuesday night for 4 straight years, Texas crowds packed themselves into local venues just to witness something totally unheard of. A 2-hour comedy show, all made up on the spot. No scripts, no notes, not even a single pre-written punchline. Can you imagine that? While most comedians spent months polishing their 1-hour specials, Corwin was out there inventing new jokes live every single week. The audience never knew what was coming, and that's what made it electric. His shows weren't just funny, they were unpredictable, raw, and alive. And then came his signature moment, the transformation. Corwin would glide onto the stage looking like absolute perfection. That flawless bob haircut, a crisp Chanel 2-piece suit, and those sharp Salvatore Ferragamo heels that screamed class. The crowd would stare in awe at this picture of elegance, this pageant-level vision of grace and power. But the second the music hit, the room flipped. The vibe changed in an instant, and everyone knew they were about to witness something unforgettable. As Amazing Grace, Corwin's unforgettable stage persona, he didn't just perform, he shattered expectations. While most female impersonators floated across the stage in long, flowing evening gowns, Corwin flipped the script completely. His outfits were bold, fierce, and unpredictable, each one daring the audience to rethink what glamour even meant. Throughout every show, he switched wardrobes again and again, each change more jaw-dropping and luxurious than the last. But let's be real, the clothes were only the warm-up. The real fireworks began when Corwin locked eyes with the crowd. If you had the guts, or bad luck, to sit in the front row, you were in the show whether you liked it or not. He'd drag you up on stage, hand you a mic, and suddenly you were his co-star. One minute he'd have you singing your lungs out, the next you'd be dancing like your shoes were on fire. Sometimes he'd even make you talk to your own clothes, like they just disrespected you. Total chaos, total comedy gold. And his cast of characters? Legendary. When he wanted to roast someone in the audience, out came Kelly, a no-nonsense alter ego who could slice through any heckler with charm and wit. The crowd never knew who they'd meet next, and that was the magic. Then came Deborah, Corwin's alter ego, who dished out the kind of relationship advice nobody asked for but everyone secretly needed.
What about women?
You mean fish?
Yeah.
Fish,
She'd strut on stage with that I know better attitude, tossing out wild wisdom that had the whole crowd screaming in laughter. And just when you thought the show couldn't get any crazier, out came Isha Punta. Her stories were so over the top that people were literally crying from laughing too hard. But then there was Miku Waka, and honestly, no one ever figured out what Miku Waka was supposed to be. The second that character appeared, the room would just explode. Total unpredictability, total madness, and the audience loved every second of it. Still, the acts that really had people lining up night after night were Corwin's celebrity impersonations. Whitney Houston, Diana Ross, Mariah Carey, and of course, Grace Jones. When Corwin became Whitney, the energy in the club changed instantly. The crowd went quiet except for a few shocked gasps. Every move, every flick of the wrist, every side glance was perfect. People swore up and down that Whitney herself had just stepped on that stage. But Corwin wasn't satisfied with just local fame. Oh no. In 1991, he leveled up, entering the Miss Gay Texas pageant as his alter ego, Amazing Grace. The competition that year was intense. Performers from Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, every corner of Texas brought their absolute best to the stage. But Corwin didn't just win. He owned it. He was so magnetic, so sharp, so completely untouchable that the judges literally started whispering to each other, wondering if they were witnessing history in real time. He wasn't just performing, he was rewriting the whole idea of what a show could be. The following year, Corwin snatched another crown, Texas Entertainer of the Year. But by then, it wasn't about beauty or costumes anymore. This was pure, undeniable talent being recognized. Corwin wore that title with pride, like a badge of destiny, already plotting his next big move, the national stage. In 1992, all eyes turned to Louisville, Kentucky, home of the National Entertainer of the Year competition. The best performers from New York, Los Angeles, Miami, and beyond rolled in with perfectly choreographed routines and tightly scripted jokes. They came to win, but they weren't ready for Corwin. He arrived with nothing but his signature confidence, a few suitcases packed with jaw-dropping costumes, and a mind spinning with improv magic. No script, no choreography, no safety net, just pure instinct. When Corwin hit that stage, he read the crowd like an open book, vibed with the judges, and flipped every expectation upside down. When the winner was finally announced, the crowd went wild. But let's be real, no one was surprised. At just 27 years old, Corwin Anthony Hawkins was crowned National Entertainer of the Year. The entire room knew they'd just witnessed a star being born. That title didn't just come with applause. It opened doors that Corwin had only dared to dream about. Overnight, he went from lighting up Texas clubs to catching the attention of HBO comedy specials. BT started calling next, eager to feature his one-of-a-kind talent. And then came the moment that changed everything, an invitation to perform on Def Comedy Jam. For someone from the drag circuit, that was practically unheard of. This was the same show that helped launch the biggest names in comedy, Bernie Mac, Chris Tucker, Dave Chappelle, and now Corwin was about to stand among them. But he didn't just make a guest appearance. He owned that stage and became a regular feature. His brand of improvised madness brought something completely new to national television. Audiences who had never stepped foot in a drag club were suddenly seeing this whirlwind of charisma, comedy, and transformation that defied everything they thought they knew about stand-up. Corwin would kick off a bit as one character, flip mid-joke into another, and drag imaginary audience members into hilarious, chaotic storylines that had viewers questioning, is this scripted? The answer was always no. Every single second was pure, off-the-cuff brilliance. Hollywood took notice fast. Word spread like wildfire. Who was this guy who never used a script, yet could hold an audience for 2 straight hours just by feeding off their energy? Before long, casting directors were showing up at his shows, ready to see the magic for themselves. In the back of one of Corwin's shows, a quiet figure sat watching, Keenan Ivory Wayans, fresh off the massive success of In Living Color.
Hi.
I know y'all wondering why I'm dressed like this.
He wasn't just there to laugh. He was there on a mission, scribbling notes, making phone calls, and studying every move Corwin made. Wayans was deep in development on his next big project, an action comedy called A Low Down Dirty Shame, and there was one major problem. He couldn't find the right actor for a key role. The character's name? Peaches. And get this, it had been written specifically for RuPaul, who at the time was already breaking into the mainstream with Supermodel tearing up the charts. This was a role made for a rising icon. But then, Wayans saw Corwin perform, and everything changed. Watching Corwin on stage was like witnessing lightning in human form. He didn't just tell jokes, he owned the room. He created entire worlds out of thin air, giving even the silliest moments depth and personality. Wayans saw something rare, something real, a performer who could make an audience laugh, cry, and gasp in the same breath. So Wayans did the unthinkable. He rewrote the role, cutting ties with the original plan and reshaping Peaches around Corwin's energy. Imagine that. A Hollywood script originally designed for RuPaul completely flipped because Corwin's talent was just too powerful to ignore. Then it happened. The call that changed everything. It was early 1994, and Corwin had officially landed his first movie role, beating out one of the biggest icons in drag culture for a part that had been written specifically for them. His friends back in Texas were in total disbelief, celebrating like their hometown hero had just won an Oscar. His family was proud too, though quietly nervous, because Hollywood was a whole new world. But Corwin? He was ready to take it by storm. Once production kicked off in Los Angeles, he brought that same fearless fire from his live shows straight onto the movie set. Between takes, he'd have the crew doubled over in laughter with his impressions and impromptu performances. His Whitney Houston moments became legendary among the cast. Someone would casually say they missed a Whitney concert, and before anyone knew it, Corwin was in character, using a napkin or a towel as a wig, belting out, "I will always love you," like his life depended on it. The entire crew would stop what they were doing just to watch the magic unfold. Director Keenan Ivory Wayans later said that Corwin brought something to Peaches that the script could never capture on paper. His improvisation was next level. He could rewrite a scene on the fly, throwing in jokes that weren't even in the script and finding small, real moments of emotion that gave Peaches heart. Corwin refused to let the role become just another comic sidekick. Instead, he pulled pieces of his alter egos, especially Kelly Kelly and Kelly Sass, and poured their confidence, attitude, and charm straight into the character, turning Peaches into pure gold. Corwin didn't just play Peaches. He built that character out of every spark of creativity he'd ever owned. He mixed Deborah's bold wisdom, Isha Punta's wild storytelling, and Miku Waka's unpredictable chaos, blending all those personas into something unforgettable. Every single scene felt alive because Corwin was pulling straight from years of experience. Those legendary Tuesday night improv shows, the countless pageant stages, and his show-stopping moments on HBO and Def Comedy Jam. He wasn't acting, he was channeling every version of himself. The cast and crew couldn't stop talking about him. Even Jada Pinkett was blown away by Corwin's professionalism and raw talent. Imagine this, a first-time film actor walking onto set surrounded by seasoned Hollywood stars and completely stealing scenes without even trying. His timing was flawless, his instincts razor-sharp, and his delivery so natural that cameras just loved him.
Thank you, girl. Hey.
Years of reading live audiences had trained him for this exact moment, and it showed. But behind that big, bright energy, something else was happening, something Corwin kept to himself. He'd started feeling unusually exhausted. The boundless energy that once carried him through 2-hour comedy marathons was slipping away. Still, He refused to let it stop him. He powered through every scene, determined to finish the film and hold on to the dream that had once felt so far out of reach. When filming finally wrapped, Corwin quietly returned home to Texas, carrying both pride and a growing sense that something wasn't right. When Corwin got back home, he couldn't stop talking about the whirlwind he'd just lived through. He told friends about working with Keenen Ivory Wayans, about how the film crew would crowd around during breaks just to watch his on-set improv sessions. He was glowing with pride. This was his moment. The movie, A Low Down Dirty Shame, was set to drop in November 1994, and Corwin already had big plans, multiple viewing parties. One back home in Houston with his family, another in Dallas with his performance community, and maybe even a trip to Los Angeles for the official premiere. Everything was lining up perfectly. Then came another bombshell. The LA Improv wanted him for an invitational tryout. That was huge. This wasn't just another comedy club. This was the legendary stage where icons like Richard Pryor, Robin Williams, and Andy Kaufman had worked their magic. For someone from the Texas drag circuit to get that kind of invite was unheard of. Corwin was thrilled. His plan was simple: ride the momentum of the movie, crush that improv performance, and finally launch his mainstream comedy career. But then, everything changed. By late July 1994, his health began to spiral. What had seemed like exhaustion after filming turned into something much more serious: pneumonia. And in that era, pneumonia often carried another, heavier meaning. Corwin was admitted to Baylor Hospital in Dallas, where he fought with everything he had. But on August 5th, 1994, at just 29 years old, the world lost a once-in-a-generation talent, the man who had improvised his way to fame, who'd outshined RuPaul for a role written specifically for her, who'd inspired Keenen Ivory Wayans to rewrite an entire character just to match his essence, was gone far too soon. Gone far too soon. And here's the heartbreaking truth. A Low Down Dirty Shame didn't hit theaters until November 23rd, 1994, just 3.5 months after Corwin passed away. He never got to sit in that dark theater and see himself shining on the big screen. He never got to hear the laughter, the cheers, the audience reactions to his performance as Peaches. He never made it to the premiere he'd spent months planning and dreaming about. When the movie finally dropped, critics couldn't stop talking about Peaches. Reviewers called the character one of the film's biggest highlights, praising the energy, the heart, and the humor that Corwin poured into every frame. What most of them didn't know, what makes it all so gut-wrenching, is that they were watching the first and only film performance of a star who was already gone. Audiences adored Peach's sharp wit and authenticity, not realizing how much of Corwin himself lived inside that role. Back home, his family gathered in Houston theaters to watch their son live on through film, tears and smiles mixing in the dark. Performers from the Texas drag circuit organized memorial screenings, sharing stories between showings about those unforgettable Tuesday night performances that had made him a legend. The clubs where he once ruled the stage threw tribute shows in his honor. But everyone agreed, no one could ever do what Corwin did. And the timing made it all even more tragic. 1994 was the year Hollywood finally started embracing drag performers. Films like The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and To Wong Foo, Thanks for Everything, were being made at that very moment. The world was finally ready for someone like Corwin, but he was gone before he could see it happen. Corwin had everything it took to become a superstar. His sharp improvisation skills, his confidence honed from Def Comedy Jam, and that effortless charisma could have carried him straight into a long, game-changing Hollywood career. After A Low Down Dirty Shame premiered, directors started calling around, asking about this incredible new talent who'd stolen every scene. But when they found out the truth, that Corwin had already passed away, the excitement turned to heartbreak. The LA Improv spot that could have launched him into mainstream stand-up went to someone else, and all those doors that had finally opened would never be walked through. Corwin was laid to rest at Memorial Cemetery in Houston, beneath a headstone engraved with just 2 words, Amazing Grace. It couldn't have been more fitting. He was Amazing Grace, bold, brave, and unforgettable. He had this rare power to walk into any room, face any crowd, and turn that space into pure, living entertainment. But Corwin's story didn't fade away. It refused to. In 2019, 25 years after his death, something incredible happened. A new generation of young drag performers, many not even born when Corwin died, began discovering his brilliance through a low-down dirty shame. They'd watch his performance as Peaches and ask in disbelief, "Who was this? Why don't we know more about him?" Soon, social media lit up with clips of his scenes, spreading Corwin's magic to people who had never seen him before. Drag Race contestants started calling him a hidden influence, and comedy historians began giving him long overdue recognition as a pioneer who fearlessly bridged drag performance and mainstream comedy long before it was considered acceptable or safe. Corwin's light never went out. It just took the world 25 years to catch up to its brilliance. The real heartbreak is this: Corwin never knew what he'd done. He passed away believing he was just a talented performer from Texas who'd gotten lucky landing one movie role. He never got to see how that single role would light a fire under an entire generation of artists. He didn't know that beating RuPaul for that part would become the stuff of drag legend. He didn't know that comedians would one day study his techniques, wondering how on earth one man could craft 2 straight hours of comedy out of thin air, completely unscripted. On the big screen, Corwin might have seemed small in stature at 5'9", but his presence was colossal. Every character he ever created, Kelly Kelly, Deborah, Isha Punta, and even the chaotic brilliance of Miku Waka, they all lived on through that one unforgettable performance. You could feel the energy of every Tuesday night improv show, every pageant win, every Def Comedy Jam appearance woven right into Peaches. It was like all those years of fearless performing had built up to that single shining moment. And that's the haunting question that lingers. What would Corwin Anthony Hawkins have become if pneumonia hadn't taken him at just 29 years old? Would he have been the first drag performer to truly break into mainstream comedy films? Would Hollywood have finally seen what the Texas crowds already knew? That he wasn't just funny, he was revolutionary? Would that LA improv tryout have launched a full-blown comedy career? Could Corwin's name have stood right beside Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence, listed among the comedy giants of the 90s? We'll never know for sure. But one thing's undeniable. For one shining moment, Corwin Hawkins was exactly where he was meant to be, standing in front of the camera, making people laugh, proving that raw talent breaks through every barrier, every label, every box Hollywood tries to create. Corwin lived his entire professional life the same way he lived his art, unscripted. He trusted his instincts, his wit, and his uncanny ability to read the room. A low-down dirty shame remains his one and only film credit. But it's so much more than that. It's a 90-minute monument to what might have been. Every frame, every laugh, every dazzling moment of Peaches captures the essence of a performer who could turn air into art. So when you watch that movie, remember, you're not just watching a performance. You're witnessing a revolution that ended too soon, a dream that came true but was never lived long enough to be celebrated. Corwin Anthony Hawkins was amazing grace, fearless, brilliant, and gone far too early. If you felt moved by his story, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment to keep his legacy alive. Let the world know about the legend of Corwin Hawkins, the man who turned life itself into a standing ovation.